When my boyfriend pressed the wrong elevator button for the 99th time, going to my friend Jade's floor instead of mine, he looked at me accusingly. Why didn't you remind me? Well, since we're already at Jade's door, might as well help her change that light bulb. I froze. Ever since Jade moved to the floor above mine a year ago, my boyfriend had been pressing the wrong floor button every single time. Once, when I had a high fever, he delivered medicine to Jade's apartment instead because she had menstrual cramps. Another time, he was supposed to meet me for a movie, but he delivered the tickets to Jade's place. Even on my birthday, he showed up at Jade's door carrying my cake. And now, watching him walk into my best friend's apartment without looking back, I coldly pressed the elevator close button. He had forgotten. Today was the day my lease expired. Today was the day I was moving out. Since he loved going to Jade's place so much, he could stop coming to mine altogether. When I went downstairs, the moving company had already arrived. Miss Winters, we'll start moving now. I nodded. My phone buzzed. A message from Ethan Lucas. Where did you go? Don't wander off. This sudden show of concern made my fingers tremble slightly. But the moment I opened the chat, his next message popped up. Go downstairs to the store and buy me a wrench. Jade doesn't have one here. I stared at his message for several seconds. So he hadn't suddenly noticed I wasn't following behind him. He only realized I wasn't by his side, because he needed me to do something for him. Scrolling up through our chat history, every single message was related to Jade Morgan. Give Jade that skincare set your coworker brought you from France. I'll buy you a different one. Jade mentioned wanting Japanese food last time. Let's go after you get off work today. I already made a reservation. Ethan's messages to me were always declarative statements. He had already decided. He never thought to ask for my opinion. The most recent message before these was from that rainy day, when I asked if he could pick me up. He said, I'm already home. Just take a cab back yourself. But the next second, Jade posted on her social media. A tilted umbrella sheltering her as she got into the passenger seat. Almost got trapped in the rain. Lucky someone came to my rescue. I recognized that car interior all too well. I used to think that since he was my boyfriend and Jade was my best friend, I should be happy they got along well. But my repeated compromises only made Ethan worse. This time I didn't reply. As I was packing in my room, Ethan sent another message. Why aren't you back yet? Jade says she wants French food. I'm taking her there first. Come meet us later. This wasn't the first time something like this had happened. We'd make plans to eat together. But when I was late because of work or traffic, all that was left for me were cold leftovers. And Ethan's response to my hurt feelings was always indifferent. Jade has stomach problems. She ate first. The food is just a little cold, it still tastes fine. Stop making a fuss. Stop making a fuss. When a pipe burst in my apartment and left the whole place flooded, I called him. He said the same thing. I don't have time to help you with that. Find a repairman yourself. Stop making a fuss. So I washed the curtains myself, changed light bulbs myself, slowly learning not to depend on him. But with Jade, he showed a completely different face. You don't need to be so independent as a woman. If you need anything from now on, I'll help you. You live so close to Vienna anyway, it's no trouble. I didn't understand why the same kind of help was considered, making a fuss, when I was his girlfriend, but no trouble when it came to Jade. I swallowed the bitterness in my heart and messaged Ethan. You two enjoy. I have things to do. It took him a long time to reply. Throwing another tantrum? Vienna Winters, how old are you? Stop being childish. I had thrown tantrums before. Last winter, I had a fever of 102 degrees. I was shivering all over, and called him to bring me medicine. But he said he was at Jade's place. Jade had menstrual cramps and couldn't get out of bed, so he went to rub her stomach. I said I was suffering too. He was silent for 2 seconds before saying, You've always had a strong constitution, haven't you? How bad could it be? Just buy some ibuprofen. That was the first time I felt I couldn't take it anymore. He was my boyfriend, yet I could never be his priority. I asked him for a breakup, but he didn't say a word, just blocked me first. He knew I loved him too much. I was too dependent on him. So he let me cry for 2 days, let me cry myself dry. Then he had Jade invite me out to dinner. I pathetically chose to reconcile. After that, I never threw tantrums again. But this time was different. I wasn't throwing a tantrum. I was serious. The movers went in and out, and the things in my apartment decreased piece by piece. Only then did I realize that after 7 years of dating, there was almost nothing of Ethan's in my home. A pair of dusty slippers, a cup he'd used once. I couldn't find a third item. Even the slippers and cup were things I had bought. He had never given me any proper gifts. When Jade moved, he brought her a housewarming present. On Jade's birthday, he prepared a large bouquet of her favorite white roses. But to me, he always said, those formalistic things are meaningless. When 2 people live together, it's better to be practical. I had questioned him, expressed my dissatisfaction. He said, I give your best friend gifts to make you look good, don't I? I laughed bitterly at myself. My phone buzzed. Mom was calling. Hello, Vienna honey. How did things go with you and Ethan discussing the wedding? Not long ago, Ethan and I had met with both our parents. Both families were very satisfied. When it came time to set the wedding date, Ethan said his career was in an upward phase, and there was no rush to get married. At the time, though disappointed, I still understood his work pressure. But now I was only grateful. A man who couldn't even remember where my door was. After marriage, would I have to wait alone in an empty house forever? Mom, we're not getting married. I'm planning to break up. Mom's voice immediately became tense. Why? Did he wrong you somehow? No, I just suddenly feel we're not compatible. On the other end of the line, Mom was clearly silent for a moment. After all, everyone knew I had loved Ethan Lucas for a full 7 years. How deep 7 years of feelings ran. Mom knew. Jade knew too. I was the one who pursued Ethan first. To get close to him, I listened to his favorite bands, read books in his field, even secretly joined the same gym just to run into him. After graduation, he signed with a company in New York. Without a second thought, I gave up the job my professor had lined up for me and followed him with my suitcase. Mom was so angry she didn't speak to me for 3 days, but I only said, Mom, if I miss him, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Back then, Jade had chided me in frustration. Vienna Winters, you're going to ruin yourself over this man. Jade and I had been best friends for 10 years. She had long since become as important to me as family. But no one expected that now she would enjoy my boyfriend's care without a second thought, completely disregarding my feelings. Looking at Jade's newly posted romantic dinner on social media, my eyes stung. The video was tagged at that restaurant I had researched so thoroughly. Flickering candlelight, exquisite dishes, pleasant piano music in the background. But every time I invited Ethan to go there with me, he always said, we're about to get married. Can you be a little more frugal? Spending thousands on one meal. Candlelight dinner. We can have that at home. He said it so righteously that I could only swallow my expectations again and again. But now, with one word from Jade saying she wanted it, he took her to that restaurant I had longed for. When the last item was moved, I collapsed exhausted on the sofa. The last time I moved, I called Ethan and he said he was too busy with work and told me to find someone myself. To save money, I could only grit my teeth and move everything myself. By the end, I was so exhausted that my chronic back problem flared up, forcing me to rest in bed for 2 days. But when Jade moved, Ethan specifically took time off work. Moving is so exhausting. Your best friend is single. We should help her out. I watched him bustling about, sweat soaking his hair, and felt he was utterly unfamiliar. So he wasn't incapable of helping someone move. He just couldn't spare a single day off for me. While I was organizing things, my phone exploded with calls. Ethan was calling. Vienna Winters, open the door. You even changed the password? What's that supposed to mean? I was silent for a moment before speaking. It doesn't mean anything. Ethan Lucas, let's break up. But the person on the other end acted as if he hadn't heard me. His voice was suppressing anger. Jade remembered you wanted to eat at that restaurant. You didn't come, but she specially got takeout for you. And what do? You changed the password and won't even open the door when I knock. Vienna Winters, stop being so unreasonable. I wasn't sure if he hadn't heard me say we should break up, or if he was so used to dismissing my requests for a breakup as just another unreasonable tantrum. I was about to repeat myself when he had already hung up. I laughed bitterly at myself. My fault. I had loved Ethan Lucas too openly, too publicly. Even he himself didn't believe I would leave him. The next day, when I went to the mall to buy things for my new place, I turned around a shelf and ran straight into 2 people. Ethan was carrying shopping bags large and small. Jade was walking beside him. The smiles on both their faces stiffened the moment they saw me. Vienna, don't misunderstand. Ethan is just helping me buy things, worried I couldn't carry them alone. Jade explained while trying to reach for my hand. But Ethan yanked her back. Why explain to her? She hasn't even apologized for yesterday. Jade, you spoil her too much. That's why she's so ungrateful. Jade looked at me with concern, but still obediently followed Ethan to the checkout counter. Watching their backs, my heart felt like it had a gaping hole. Ethan never accompanied me shopping. He said shopping was too tiring, too troublesome. If you need something, just order delivery. Why go through all that trouble yourself? But now he was carrying bags large and small for Jade without complaint. Outside the mall, Ethan loaded everything into the trunk. Jade had already gotten into the passenger seat and rolled down the window to wave at me. Ethan naturally said, "Get in. I'll drive you both home." Seeing my eyes land on the girlfriend's exclusive seat, sticker on the passenger side, he frowned, somewhat impatiently. Jade hurt her back at the gym recently. The passenger seat has more space. You sit in the back for now. Look at that. He remembered all of Jade's habits. He remembered her bad back. He remembered her menstrual cramps. But he couldn't remember the old injury I got from moving heavy boxes. My nose stung. I forced myself to speak. No thanks. It's not on my way. Jade reached to unbuckle her seatbelt. Vienna, why are you being like this? Don't you want me in the passenger seat? I'll get out right now. But Ethan pressed her hand down first and sneered. If it's not on your way, forget it. Let's go. As soon as he finished speaking, the car started and drove away from me. With me, Ethan never seemed to have much patience. A few days later, Ethan sent me an address again. My mom invited you to dinner to discuss the wedding. I typed and deleted in the message box, hesitating for a long time before finally replying with a simple okay. Even if I had decided to break up, I should give the older generation an explanation in person. After all, after 7 years together, Ethan's mother had been relatively good to me. When I walked into the private dining room, Mrs. Lucas was already there. I exchanged pleasantries with her. Only then did Ethan arrive late with Jade. Mom, Jade works at the company next to mine. She's also Vienna's good friend. This restaurant is close to the office, so I brought her along. Mrs. Lucas cleared her throat lightly, her expression somewhat unpleasant. But Ethan acted as if he didn't notice and directly picked up the menu to start ordering. Everything he ordered was Jade's favorite dishes. He and Jade both loved spicy food, but I couldn't handle it. Every time the three of us ate Mexican food together, they would enjoy the peppers with relish while I could barely take 2 bites before coughing uncontrollably. Ethan, don't order so many spicy dishes. Mrs. Lucas frowned and looked at me. Only then did Ethan seem to remember, saying casually, then let's get this almond pudding. Vienna likes sweet things. Bitterness welled up in my heart. After ordering everything, he finally deigned to consider my taste as an afterthought. Ethan, Jade looked somewhat troubled, glancing between Ethan and me. Vienna is allergic to nuts. Reminded by someone else, Ethan finally showed some panic, quickly flipping through the menu. Oh, then we'll change it. How about? No need to bother. I stood up and interrupted him. How ridiculous. 7 years, yet not enough time for him to learn my tastes. Even my dietary restrictions had to be pointed out by someone else. I looked apologetically at Mrs. Lucas and spoke softly. I'm sorry, Mrs. Lucas. I won't be staying for dinner. Ethan Lucas and I have already broken up. After saying this, I turned and left the private room. Ethan didn't chase after me. It wasn't until evening that Ethan finally showed up at my old apartment door. He rang the doorbell over and over, but no one answered. Impatience had just begun to show on his face when a neighbor stuck their head out. Stop knocking. This is an empty unit. The woman who lived here moved out last week. The hallway of the apartment building was exceptionally quiet, smelling faintly of cheap lavender floor cleaner and old dust. Ethan stood before the gray metal door of Unit 402, his hand still raised in a loose fist. The brass numbers, 402, glistened under the flickering fluorescent light. He had knocked 3 times, each strike louder and more impatient than the last. Stop knocking, the neighbor, an elderly woman named Mrs. Gable, said as she leaned her head out of Unit 405. Her eyes, sharp behind thick lenses, swept over Ethan's expensive leather jacket and the slight flush of anger on his neck. She's gone. The movers took the last of the boxes on Tuesday. Ethan turned slowly, his brow furrowing. What do you mean gone? She's probably just staying at a hotel because of some issue with the water pipes. Mrs. Gable let out a dry, rattling laugh. Young man, she packed up 7 years of her life in 6 cardboard boxes and a suitcase. She didn't leave a forwarding address, but she told the landlord she was leaving the city limits. Now close the door, you're letting the draft in. The door to Unit 405 shut with a decisive click. Ethan stood alone in the hallway. The silence of the empty space seemed to press against his chest. He pulled his phone from his pocket, his thumb automatically sliding to Vienna's contact card. He pressed dial. The number you have dialed is unavailable. Please check the number and try again. He stared at the screen. Unavailable, he muttered. He tried sending a message on WeChat, then on WhatsApp. Both showed a single gray tick. He was blocked. She's playing games again, Ethan muttered to himself, though his fingers had gone cold. He forced a scoff, turning on his heel and walking toward the elevator. 7 years. She thinks she can just pack up and leave over a dinner. He got into his car, the engine purring to life. Out of habit, his hand hovered over the navigation system. Usually, by this time on a Friday, Vienna would have sent him a list of groceries she needed for the weekend, or asked if he wanted her to cook his favorite braised beef. Today his screen was blank. His phone buzzed. It was Jade. Ethan, where are you? My back is hurting again. Did you manage to find that heating pad at Vienna's place? Ethan stared at the message. A sudden, sharp irritation flared in his gut. Feeling so unfamiliar it made him pull over to the side of the road. Vienna's not there, he typed back. She moved out. A few minutes passed. Then Jade called. What do you mean she moved out? Jade's voice was high, laced with a strange, nervous flutter. Did you two have a fight? Is she still mad about the dinner? Yesterday? I told her I didn't mean to order the almond pudding, Ethan. I forgot. She had that silly allergy. She didn't say anything to you? Ethan asked, his voice tightening around the steering wheel. You two are best friends. You've known each other for 10 years. Well, she hasn't been replying to my texts lately, Jade said, her tone softening into that helpless, delicate cadence she used whenever she wanted him to reassure her. You know how Vienna is when she gets into one of her moods. She shut me out last winter too, remember? She'll calm down in a day or two. Why? Don't you come over? I bought some imported steak, and we can look for her together tomorrow. No, Ethan said, the word slipping out before he could think. I have to go back to my parents' house. My mother is furious about the dinner. He hung up without waiting for her reply. He looked at the passenger seat. The girlfriend's exclusive seat sticker was still there, the edge slightly peeling. For the first time he noticed how small the interior of his car felt without Vienna's quiet, steady presence in the back, patiently holding her bags while he drove Jade to her appointments. The house Ethan's parents owned in the suburbs was large, surrounded by a neatly manicured lawn that Vienna had spent 3 weekends planting hydrangeas in last spring. When Ethan walked through the front door, the scent of roast chicken and red wine drifted from the kitchen. His mother, Mrs. Lucas, was sitting at the dining table, her reading glasses pushed up into her hair, a pile of fabric samples spread before her. Where is Vienna? She asked immediately, not looking up. She couldn't make it, Mom, Ethan said, tossing his keys onto the console table. She's busy with her new apartment. Mrs. Lucas stopped her fingers on a piece of cream silk. She looked up, her expression turning incredibly cold. Ethan, don't lie to me. I called Vienna's office today. They told me she resigned 2 weeks ago. She's taken a position in Boston. Ethan froze, his hand still hovering over his jacket zipper. Boston? That's 4 hours away. Why would she go to Boston? Because you let her go, his mother said, her voice dropping to a quiet, dangerous register. I watched you at the restaurant yesterday, Ethan. I watched you order everything that Jade, wanted, while Vienna sat there like an uninvited guest. Do you know how long Vienna has been taking care of you? Since you were 21. When you had that terrible flu in college and your throat was so swollen you couldn't swallow, who stayed up for 3 nights straight to blend your food? Vienna did, Ethan said, his voice dropping. And when you wanted to move to New York, who gave up her fellowship at the institute to pack her life into a suitcase and follow you? She did. So tell me, Mrs. Lucas said, standing up and walking over to her son, her eyes flashing with a deep, maternal disappointment. Why did I see another woman's initials engraved on the inside of the silver teapot Vienna bought for this family last Christmas? Why did Jade Morgan have a key to your car, and why did you look more concerned about her sore back than your own fiancé's food allergy? Jade is just her friend, Mom. Ethan burst out, his defense mechanism kicking. She's single, she's alone in the city, and Vienna asked me to look after her. Vienna did not ask you to replace her, his mother interrupted, her voice sharp as glass. Vienna is a proud girl. She has tolerated your neglect for 7 years because she loved you too much to make a scene. But every woman has a limit, Ethan. And you've finally crossed it. Mrs. Lucas turned and walked back to the kitchen, leaving him standing in the grand, silent living room. He looked at the hydrangeas outside the window. They were blooming in soft, pale blues, Vienna's favorite color. He had never once watered them. He had never once asked her how her back felt after spending 6 hours in the dirt. He pulled out his phone again, his fingers hovering over Jade's chat box. He wanted to ask her if she knew anything about Boston. But then, looking at the dozens of messages he had sent Jade over the past year, messages about her light bulbs, her groceries, her car rides, and comparing them to the dry, declarative commands he had sent Vienna, a strange, suffocating weight settled in his chest. Vienna Winters, he whispered to the empty room. Where are you? Boston in late autumn was cold, the wind blowing off the Charles River with a sharp, salt-scented chill. I stood on the balcony of my new brownstone apartment, holding a mug of hot ginger tea. The space was small, but it was mine. The hardwood floors were dark, the walls a clean, crisp white, and there was no gray furniture, no minimalist leather sofas that Ethan had insisted on because they looked professional. Here I had a plush, oversized armchair in deep emerald green, a small library of art history books, and a view of the brick streets below. Vienna. A voice called from inside. Julian Vance stepped out onto the balcony, holding a folder of architectural blueprints. He was 32, the principal director of the restoration firm I had joined last week, and a man who possessed a quiet, steady competence that didn't need to be loud to be felt. The Historical Society just approved our proposal for the Beacon Hill Library. Julian said, offering a warm, genuine smile. Your research on the 19th century woodwork was the deciding factor. The board was thoroughly impressed. Thank you, Julian, I said, taking a sip of my tea. It was easy once I got access to the archives. You worked through the weekend for it, he noted, his hazel eyes settling on my face with a quiet, respectful intensity. I hope you're not overworking yourself to avoid adjusting to the new city. No, I said, looking out at the river. For the first time in 7 years, I feel like I'm actually breathing. The air here is clean. Good, Julian said, closing the folder. Because the team is going out for dinner to celebrate tonight. I know a very good French place near the Common. No nuts, no dairy. I've already checked with the chef. I paused, my heart giving a strange, light flutter. You checked? Of course, he said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. You mentioned your allergy during your interview. It would be a rather poor reflection on my management if my lead researcher collapsed during our first celebratory dinner, wouldn't it? I smiled, a real, deep smile that didn't feel heavy at the corners. Thank you, Julian. I'd love to go. After he left, I walked back into the living room and sat at my desk. My phone lay near my laptop, silent. For the first week after I moved, my finger had occasionally drifted to the social media apps, wanting to see if Jade had posted another candlelit dinner, or if Ethan had finally noticed his slippers were gone. But I had uninstalled the apps on Tuesday. I didn't need to know. I looked at my hands. They were soft again. The calluses I had developed from carrying heavy moving boxes last winter had faded. The chronic pain in my lower back was gone, replaced by the gentle, healthy tiredness of a woman who walked to her office every morning through the park. I had loved Ethan Lucas for 7 years. I had given him my youth, my career prospects, and my dignity. But as I looked around my quiet, beautiful apartment, I realized that 7 years of love could be undone by one simple truth. A man who loves you will remember how you take your tea. A man who doesn't will forget your door. Back in New York, the dynamic between Ethan and Jade was beginning to change. Without Vienna to act as the silent, steady anchor, the thin veneer of their friendship began to crack. Ethan, did you bring the laundry detergent? Jade asked, her voice carrying a sharp, whiny edge as she stood in the doorway of her apartment. Her hair was messy, and her living room was cluttered with empty takeout containers and half-unpacked boxes. I told you, Jade, I was busy at the office, Ethan said, running a hand through his hair. He looked tired. His shirt was slightly wrinkled, a detail he had never had to worry about before because Vienna had always ironed his clothes on Sunday evenings. Can't you just order it online? But the delivery takes 2 days. Jade huffed, crossing her arms. And my back is too sore to carry those heavy bottles from the store. You used to help me with this all the time. That was when I lived downstairs. Ethan snapped, his voice louder than he intended. Jade flinched, her eyes immediately welling with tears. Why are you yelling at me? I didn't do anything wrong. It's Vienna who left us both. She didn't even say goodbye to me, Ethan. She was my best friend for 10 years, and she just discarded me like I was nothing. Ethan looked at her. For the first time, without the shadow of Vienna's quiet tolerance to make Jade look like the victim, he saw her clearly. She was 27, fully capable of carrying her own groceries, yet she had spent the last year treating him like a free concierge service. She had enjoyed the thrill of being prioritized over his girlfriend, but now that the girlfriend was gone, the thrill had vanished, leaving only the mundane, exhausting reality of her constant demands. She didn't discard you, Jade, Ethan said, his voice dropping into a flat, tired drone. She left me, and she left you because we both deserved it. What? I'm going home, Ethan said, picking up his keys. Don't call me tomorrow. I have a meeting. He walked down the stairs, ignoring the elevator. When he reached the lobby, he stood before the mailboxes. He looked at the slot for Unit 402. The nameplate had already been removed, leaving only a clean blank space. He walked out into the cold New York night, the wind stinging his eyes. He drove to his parents' house again, hoping for some comfort, but when he entered the kitchen, his mother didn't even look at him. She was on the phone, her voice warm and soft. Yes, Vienna, honey. The apartment sounds beautiful. Yes, your father and I will come visit you in the spring. Take care of yourself. Mrs. Lucas hung up, her face instantly turning cold as she saw Ethan standing in the doorway. She's in Boston, Ethan said, his voice raw. She's with that restoration firm. Yes, his mother said, washing a plate in the sink. And she is very happy. I want to go see her, Ethan whispered, his pride finally breaking. I want to apologize. I can make it up to her, Mom. We were going to get married. Mrs. Lucas stopped her hands. She turned to her son, her eyes filled with a sad, weary pity. Ethan, she said softly, you can't make up for 7 years of starvation with a single meal. She doesn't want your apologies. She's finally found her appetite. Again. 6 months later, the restoration of the Beacon Hill Library was completed. The opening gala was a grand affair, held in the newly restored reading room. Under the soft glow of restored brass chandeliers, the elite of Boston's historical and architectural societies were in attendance, dressed in black ties and silk gowns. I wore a simple, elegant navy silk dress, my short hair styled into a soft, classic wave that highlighted the clean line of my neck. I stood beside Julian, holding a glass of white wine, as he introduced me to the president of the Historical Commission. Vienna's work on the archive preservation was outstanding, Julian was saying, his hand resting lightly and naturally on the small of my back, not to control me but to support me. We couldn't have completed the project without her. I smiled, feeling a deep, solid sense of accomplishment. Suddenly, the heavy oak doors at the end of the hall opened, and a small delegation from the New York Architectural Society walked in. And there, standing near the back of the group, was Ethan. He looked thinner, his face pale under the bright lights of the chandeliers. Was dressed in a classic tuxedo, but his tie was slightly crooked, and his eyes were darting frantically through the crowd. Then his eyes found me. I watched as his body went completely rigid. He stared at my navy dress, at my short hair, and at the hand Julian had resting on my back. He began walking toward me, his strides long and urgent, ignoring the people who tried to greet him. Vienna, he said as he stopped 3 feet away. His voice was raw, shaking with an emotion he couldn't hide. Julian stepped forward slightly, his posture turning protective, but I placed a gentle hand on his arm. It's fine, Julian. Give us a moment, please. Julian looked at Ethan, then at me. He nodded, his hazel eyes conveying a quiet, absolute trust. I'll be by the library desk if you need me, Vienna. He walked away, leaving Ethan and me standing in the quiet corner of the gallery. Vienna. Ethan took a step closer, his eyes reddening. You look beautiful. Your hair. Thank you, Ethan, I said, my voice as calm and cool as the marble pillars behind us. How is New York? It's empty, he whispered, his chest heaving. The house. I haven't changed. The password, Vienna. I still go there sometimes, thinking maybe you'll be there. I bought the slippers you liked. And I bought that skincare set. From France, the real one. I have it in my car right now. I looked at him, feeling a strange, distant pity. I don't live in New York anymore, Ethan. And I don't need French skincare. Why did you leave like that? He burst out, his voice cracking, drawing a few looks from nearby guests. 7 years, Vienna. We were going to get married. My mother. She won't even look at me. Jade and I. We don't even speak anymore. I realized I was a fool. I took you for granted because I thought you'd always be there. I know, I said quietly. Then come back, he begged, reaching out to grab my hand, his fingers trembling. Please, Vienna. Let's start over. I'll move to Boston. I'll help you move your things. I'll buy you a house here. I'll do whatever you want. I slowly, gently pulled my hand out of his grip. Ethan, I said, my voice steady and clear. When I had that high fever last winter, do you remember what you told me? He paused, his eyes widening. I said, you told me I had a strong constitution, I said. You told me to just buy some ibuprofen because Jade needed her stomach rubbed. You thought I was strong because I never complained. But the truth is I was only strong because I had to be. Vienna, I'm sorry. And do you remember the restaurant we went to last week with your mother? I continued. You ordered the almond pudding. You've known me for 7 years, Ethan, but Jade had to tell you I was allergic to nuts. Ethan's face went entirely pale, his lips parting but no sound coming out. The man I am with now, I said, looking over at Julian, who was watching us from a distance with a calm, reassuring gaze, knew my allergy after 1 week. He doesn't press the wrong button on the elevator. He doesn't make me carry my own heavy boxes, and he doesn't call my pain a tantrum. You love him? Ethan whispered, his eyes filled with a deep, crushing despair. No, I said, looking back at Ethan one last time. I love myself. And because I love myself, I can never go back to being the woman who slept on your floor. I turned my back on him, walking toward the light of the grand library where Julian was waiting. Behind us, Ethan stood entirely alone in the center of the crowd, the warm, golden light of the chandeliers casting his shadow long and cold across the empty, polished floor. I didn't look back. I had 7 years of life to catch up on, and the night was just beginning.